Gosh, I hope I don't have to look at that all day. And thank you. I want to thank the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs for inviting me. Hello, ladies. How you doing? Do I sound awake now? Good. I've been chugging coffee all morning. I got to apologize because I'm tired. I had to be at the Twins game last night and throw out the first ball. Yeah. How amazing is that? So I had my grandchildren with me and, of course, my husband. And they took us out to the field, and I actually got it all the way to TC. It just rolled right into his little knees. But, yeah, I had a good time. So I didn't get to bed till after midnight, and then I got up at 5 and drove in this morning. So I've been chugging coffee. When I'm done, I need to take off because May starts all of our district conventions in the American Legion. And we have 2 of them going on today. We have one in Waseca for the 1st district, and the 3rd is meeting in Hutchinson. Obviously, I'm not going to make Waseca, but I am headed to Hutchinson when I leave here, and so I can have a chat with them. They like to have the commander show up every now and then. Yes, I am actually the 98th commander of the American Legion. 98. We had one year that we went through 2. He decided he wanted to run for office. I think it was like 1926. He wanted to run for office, and so he had to resign, and another guy had to take his place. Before too long, we'll be celebrating our centennial, and we're coming back to Minneapolis for that convention. Anyway, I'm the 98th commander. It took him that long to finally elect a woman. And I stay on the road. I stay busy because I know if I don't do a good job, it'll be another 98 years before they get around to electing another one, and I don't want that to happen because we have some great women that are coming up through the ranks, and I have some of them here with me today. We have Jennifer from the 8th District. Yep. And we have Lisa back over there from St. Paul. Yep. And we have Veronica over here from St. Cloud. Yeah, my area. So I have some notes here because I knew I was going to be tired, and it's pretty sad when you got to make notes about your own life, because that's what I'm going to talk about. But we're going to get going here. And I'm also, as they said, commander of the Commander's Task Force, and that's made up of the 9 federally chartered veterans organizations. And we meet monthly with the commissioner and his staff and get brief. We help them push their legislative agenda. So this last couple of weeks have been really crazy. And I can tell you, the House, I think, is probably meeting as we speak and will probably continue for the rest of the weekend because constitutionally they have to shut down at midnight Monday night. So let's hope we get what we need from them because we need a lot. As I was getting ready for today, I wanted to think of this. How many of you were born and raised in Minnesota? Let me see. Yeah, pretty good amount. Pretty good amount. How many of you got married and brought a husband back with you back to Minnesota that's from another state? Yeah, there's a couple of you? Yeah, a few of you? Okay. You know how I know this? My husband is one of the eye doctors at the St. Cloud VA hospital. And every now and then he gets a guy that'll come in, sit in his chair, and you can tell he's got a southern accent. My husband was born and raised in Tampa, Florida. And let's face it, he didn't move here for the low taxes and the warm weather. Yeah, but he always says, well, what brought you to Minnesota? Where are you from? And they'll say, oh, Alabama. What brought you here to Minnesota? And they'll say, well, when I was in the service, I married a lady that was from Minnesota, and she wanted to come back here. And he'll go, welcome to the club. There are a lot of us that have done that. So yeah, I brought him back here. So why do we do that? What is it about this place that we come home to? And I think, you know what? We're kind of like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. We just like being home. There's no place like home. Carl and I, we married, when I was in the service, I was at Travis Air Force Base, and when the war ended, I got out and I married my husband. We went to Biloxi, Mississippi, Keesler, and then from there we went to Madrid, Spain. And so eventually, I just wanted to come back home again. I missed my family. I'd been away probably for about 12 years. And there's no place like home. So I brought him back, and I did tell him the weather was good. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about growing up in Minnesota, because I love it here. I've lived all over. This is where I want to stay. I grew up in a small town, Zimmerman, Minnesota. It's a lot bigger today. It is growing. But I remember looking at the sign as I was leaving to go to the airport and on my way to basic training. And I turned around and I looked, and it said Zimmerman, population 302. That's a small town. Yeah, and it's like everything else. Half of them were relatives. The other half were named Johnson or Swanson or Thompson. And it always made school dances a real delight, as you can imagine. We lived on a huge farm. My folks had 300 acres. And we had a barn, we had buildings, we had a plum orchard. We actually had all the land around a lake, so we could go fishing anytime we wanted to. And when you grew up in my era, that was your toys. If you didn't get a lot of toys, you were just told to go outside. That was your toy. And we'd spend the whole day outside. But it was a wonderful way to be raised. My grandparents lived just down the road from us. I had aunts and uncles that lived close. I just enjoyed my upbringing here. Now, that's not to say it didn't have a few problems. I came home from school one day when I was in junior high, and our house was burning down. It was the dead of winter. And when you're from a small town like Zimmerman, you have a volunteer fire department. Yeah, their motto was save the foundation. We lost our house. We lost everything. My parents rebuilt. 2 years later, it's July 22nd, 1967. There are 2 tornadoes that are approaching the St. Francis River. And when they hit the St. Francis River, they merge together. Guess who lives on the other side of the St. Francis River? That tornado came and did a huge swoop and took everything we owned. So twice we lost everything. But the one good thing about it is that we never lost each other. And I think that ultimately is who we are. We're family. We come back to our beginnings. We come back to our roots. We come back because we want to be with our family. And I think that's what brings me here today. I consider you family too. Oh, and I got to tell you, just like Dorothy, that Wizard of Oz movie is still one of my favorites. Isn't that strange? That tornado, it just... So, eventually, I went in the service. The war was still going on, although it was kind of coming to a close. I did my basic training, Travis Air Force Base. Not Travis, it's San Antonio, Lackland. And then my first assignment was Travis Air Force Base, which is a big base, and it's where a lot of people come and go when they were headed for Nam. And I was with the Public Affairs Office. We hosted the news media a lot because they would come in and they'd want to interview either people leaving to go to Vietnam or interview them as they were coming back. Bob Hope would go through on his USO tours with all of the wonderful people, Miss America, and everybody that went with him. But I'll tell you about my very first assignment. Jennifer, I'm sorry, you've already heard this. My very first assignment when I got to Travis, President Nixon was in office, and he was working really hard trying to negotiate with China and try to improve our relationship with China. And for some reason, they made this deal. China was going to give us 2 adorable pandas. Do you remember? Ling Ling and, was it Ling Ling and Sing Sing? Okay. Yeah, pandas, they're cute. They're cute, they're cuddly, they're beautiful, right? Do you know what we were giving China? Do you remember? 2 musk oxen. Have you seen a musk oxen? Oh, they are the homeliest. Ugliest. They've got a snout on it. They're always in the water. They look kind of like a rhino. Their noses are always running. They're dirty. They're not cuddly. But for some reason, evidently muskoxen were going extinct in China. Maybe they didn't even like each other. I don't know. But anyway, they wanted 2 muskoxen. Well, wouldn't you know it, we have Ling Ling and Sing Sing, and they're getting Milton and Matilda. They didn't even have cute names. So, of course, Milton and Matilda were supposed to leave Travis Air Force Base on their way to China. The day before they were scheduled to leave, Matilda got a cold, and the base veterinarian said, they can't go. Milton can't go without Matilda, and Matilda can't go because she's got a cold. Now, how do you tell if a muskoxen has a cold? I don't know. But so my job was on that Saturday that they were supposed to leave, I had to man the office and the phones and tell members of the press that called, no, Matilda's got a cold. They will not be leaving today, but as soon as they have rescheduled their trip, we will give you a call. That was my very first assignment. So the next day, I'm reading all the newspapers, and it says in there, according to Air Force spokesman, and I thought, that's me. I'm an Air Force spokesman, Peggy Moon, Zimmerman, Minnesota, population 302. And so then the Air Force could tell me to do anything, and I was, I'm ready. Probably the biggest assignment, biggest project, mission that we had at Travis is in February of '73. They released the POWs from the Vietnam War, and they came through Travis Air Force Base. We literally had to move our office from the headquarters building to the community center. AP and UPI set up on opposite ends because they were competing photojournalists, and we had about 300 members of the press. We'd give news conferences 2-3 times a day. And it took about, I want to say it took about 3.5 weeks to bring all the POWs home. They equipped the C-141 Starlifters as medical evacuation planes, and they had Red Crosses on them. We also had the families with us that hadn't seen their husbands in, well, Alvarez was there for 8 years. John McCain was there for, I think it was a little over 6. Yeah, it was, I still get a little teary when I think of them, and I in my mind, I can see the families running out, and the wedding ring stories, because a lot of these people were pilots or navigators or something like that, and they couldn't wear their rings when they were on duty and they were flying because they were afraid the rings would get stuck on the gear. So when the personal effects were sent back home to the families, the wedding rings were usually always in there. And there were so many of them that they ran up, and before she would even give him a kiss, he put that ring back on his finger. Yeah. Then we found out that on about the 4th flight coming back, my bracelet guy was on that. Do you remember the POW bracelets we used to wear? My guy was on the manifest. And graphics made me a huge sign that said, welcome home, Chief Warrant Officer Dan Maslowski, you're my bracelet man. And the plane came in and landed, and they went up and they said, we've got a photo op for Chief Warrant Officer Maslowski. So they brought him out first and took me to the bottom of the ramp. And I gave him the bracelet, and he gave me a kiss. The next day, that paper, or that picture, now remember, we had both AP and UPI with us, and by this point, I'd gotten to know them fairly well. That picture was on the front page of almost every newspaper across the country the next day. Yeah, I've got a couple. In fact, El Zidane asked me, do you have copies of that? I said, yeah, I do. But they're pretty old. They're pretty old. So, like I said, when the war was over, I got out. Carl and I got married, and we spent 4 years at Keesler. Carl graduated under what they called the Health Professions Scholarship Program, whereby your last 4 years of graduate school, the Air Force or whatever branch you were going into would pay for it, And all you had to do was give him back those 4 years on active duty. And that's what Carl did. And when we were done with the 4 years at Keesler, we talked about moving back to Minnesota. And then the chief of optometry asked him to go to Madrid, Spain. And we thought, well, why not? So we packed up the kids and the furniture, and we moved to Madrid for 4 years, and then eventually came back to Minnesota. Now remember, my husband was born and raised in Tampa, Florida. He had never seen snow. I joined the Legion right after I got out. The American Legion in my town is like the place that everybody goes to. After both disasters, after the fire, after the tornado, they held benefits for us. When my dad belonged there, my mother was a member of the auxiliary, my great uncle was my uncle was a charter member, and the post is named after my family. So it's kind of hard. It's called the Kriesel-Jacobson Post, and we were Kriesels. My great uncle, Robert Kriesel, was the first one to die in World War I from our area. He died in France. So yeah, when your name's on the door, it's kind of what you do. Plus that we always participated in Memorial Day services at our cemetery, which was just down the road for us. We always had to get the cemetery ready for Memorial Day services. And the Legion was always there with the honor guard. So it was a huge part of my life. So like I said, I joined right away after I got out. When we moved back to Minnesota, I got a call from one of our friends, and he said, Peggy, Legion meetings Wednesday night, get a babysitter, pick me up at 7. Okay. This was in October of 1983. I've been going to meetings ever since. But that was my start. That was my start. Eventually, I became the first female post commander. I do have to tell you, though, one little story. When Carl and I were in Keesler, we had our kids. Both daughters were born down there. And after Tally, our first one was born, I talked to my folks. And he said, yeah, he said, we were at a meeting last night at the Legion. I said, oh, how did it go? He said, it ran a little long. He said, they were trying to figure out what to get you. And I said, why? And he said, well, we've never actually had a Legionnaire that had the baby. Go figure. Go figure. I got to tell you this, too. I told you about the fire and their tornado. We were known as that family in Zimmerman who moved 3 times, never had to change their address. Anyway, so I became the post commander. Eventually, I became the gambling manager. And it was about this time that I started going to the district conventions. I started going to the department conventions. I was getting to know more people. And every time I would go to something, I'd learn a little bit more about the American Legion. And then one day, I got a call from past department commander Bill Barbnick. Big, tall guy, works for the post office. And he said, Peggy, he says, I met with Governor Carlson this week. And I said, okay. And he said, he asked what he could do for the American Legion. And he said, I told them that we wanted to put somebody on that gambling control board because our posts are all involved in gambling. And he said he'd be happy to do that, but he really wanted to appoint a woman, and did I know a woman Legionnaire? I was appointed to the Gambling Control Board in December of '94. By '98, I was chairman of the Gambling Control Board, and I stayed there until about 2006. So, yeah, I've made some friends, I've made some enemies with that job, let me tell you. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Anyway, as I went along, I did more and more things with the American Legion. And I was district commander, 1998-99. We're waiting for Veronica to take that step before too long. I think Jennifer's going to be shortly behind her someday as a district commander. And then I've served on a bunch of different committees, just about every committee we have. I finally ran for commander and lost. They just weren't ready to have a woman lead them yet. It was tough. And that's when I almost gave up. I almost thought, okay, I'm just going to do stuff at my post and heck with all this stuff. And then about 5 years ago, a guy by the name of Tom Lannon was running for commander, and he asked me to be his membership director. So I thought, well, okay, we'll do that. And we did pretty good. We stayed in first place nationally almost the entire year. And after that, we were at a meeting, and another past department commander came over and sat, and he said, Peggy, you need to run for commander. I said, I did that already. I lost. They aren't ready for a woman yet. And he said, I think they are now. He said, you've earned your stripes. You've done a good job. You deserve it. And he said, I'll support you. And this was a guy that wasn't a big fan of mine prior to this. So I went back, talked to Carl. We opened up a bottle of wine, and we talked, and we talked, and we talked. And yeah, I decided to run. And wouldn't you know it? I won. I won. So as you can tell, I am just really, really proud of the American Legion. You know, so many people say, you know, I can't join the Legion, I don't drink. What the heck does that have to do with anything? You know, and then I realized every one of our posts, and we have over 550 posts just in Minnesota. Do you believe that? Nationally, our past national commander, Dan Dillinger, used to love to say, you know, they call us a dying organization. We have more posts nationally than there are McDonald's. We have more posts than there are Starbucks. I mean, they're everywhere. You look almost in every community, and you'll find an American Legion. And basically what we are is just a group of veterans who still like to serve their community. They like to work with kids. They like to do things for their fellow veterans. They still want to serve. And that's why they join. That's why it has, yeah, we have bars, some of us do, not all of us do. And it's a nice place to get together if you want to get together with people. But we're not a franchise of bars. We're an organization, grassroots level, that just loves to do things together, likes to serve fellow veterans. And that's what we do. Many of us, we work to do scholarships for our kids in the community. We certainly provide the honors when a member or any service member or veteran passes away. They don't have to be a member. We're happy to provide those services for the family. Well, we have a new group now, and it's called the American Legion Riders. And this group is a group of our members, be it the Legion, the Auxiliary, or the SAL, that love motorcycle riding. Their main function is they do 2 rides, one in the southern part of Minnesota and one in the northern part, for a weekend in August, and raise money for the Legacy Foundation, the Legacy Scholarships. This was established right after 9/11. And it provides college tuition for any child who lost a parent on active duty since 9/11. Last year alone, just the Minnesota group raised $87,600. Yeah, I mean, yeah. How can you not like a group that does that kind of thing? I sit at National on the Child Welfare Foundation, and this is another organization. We give grants out every year to other nonprofit organizations that help our kids. In fact, years ago in our infancy, we gave a $50,000 donation to an organization that was looking into heart problems for children, and they needed some seed money. You know what that organization is called today? The American Heart Association. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you look at our history and you just, God, I get so doggone proud, you know? And of course, one of the big things the American Legion is known for is the GI Bill. And if you're ever in Washington, D.C., and you stop by our headquarters that we have there, you'll see a napkin, and it's framed, and it's on the wall, and it is the beginnings of the GI Bill. They had talked about it over a dinner, and they started making notes, and that became the GI Bill. And do you know that that changed America? It gave us back a middle class. It allowed those guys coming back and women to go to school, get their degrees. It allowed them to buy homes. And it really gave us back our middle class. You know? And the GI Bill is still as important today as it was then. It's been adapted a few times. It's a living, breathing document that changes with the times. But yeah, I'm so doggone proud of this organization. I really am. So with that, I think that's the reason we come back. We come back so we can do good things for our communities, for our kids. And it's my privilege to lead this organization. I always tell them when I talk to them that, that I'm very lucky to have this job, but I am not the American Legion. The American Legion lives and breathes in every little community across this great state. And it's the work that they do and the effect that they have in their communities that's important. They're the ones that are the American Legion. So with that, I'm hoping someday, if you don't already, that you'll maybe consider joining a veterans organization. Doesn't have to be the Legion, although I would recommend it. But you got the DAV, the VFW, AMVETS. There's a number of them out there. Get involved. Get involved. We love to get back. So in closing, I just want to let you know, I talked about the Wizard of Oz earlier. You guys are great. I can tell you all have a huge heart. I know you got brains, and you have already proven that you have courage. So just like Dorothy, welcome home. Thank you for listening.